The base pay definition list, and then we're authorizing the fire chief to sign that when it comes in. And then, I think that's it, correct?
Is that a motion, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, we need a motion to approve it.
Is that motion to approve the local 3556 pending the CalPERS report and authorize the chief to sign?
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. That's 100%. Okay, moving on to departmental items. Item A, operational resolution 2025-03, retirement of radio call signal division 7710. Discuss review action.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The El Dorado County Fire family lost a 20-year member on March 14th, 2025 with the passing of Chief Shepherd. The untimely loss of Chief Shepherd shortly after his promotion to division chief impacted our members and district significantly. In honor of Chief Shepherd, his family, and the community served, staff is recommending the retirement of Chief Shepherd's radio call sign Division 7710. The retirement of this number should have no operational impact on the district operations for the foreseeable future. Staff recommend the board adopt resolution 2025-03, which is the retirement of radio call sign Division 7710, and attached to my staff report is the resolution.
Any public comment on this? Any board comments? We have a motion to approve it.
I move to approve resolution 2025-03, retirement of call sign 7710.
All those in favor?
I do have
Hold on.
resolution.
Resolution, right?
Director Israel,
Aye.
Director Lucky,
Aye.
Director Oden,
Aye.
Director Edmonton,
Aye.
So item B, administrative resolution 2025-04, recognition of the city of Placerville. I think we need a motion to approve this one. So we can,
The board approves it and we have representatives.
then we have a representative from the city here. We can have, so we have a motion to approve it.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2025-.
I'll second.
Director Heidman,
Aye.
Director Brennan,
Aye.
Director Oden,
Aye.
Director Edmonton,
Thank you. So we do have, David Warner, here representing the city of Placerville, and, we have a resolution where we'd like to really recognize the city of Placerville and their staff. And so, whereas on March 14th, 2025, thought I was pulled off without my glasses. Yes, actually. The El Dorado County Fire Protection District learned of the untimely and tragic passing of Division Chief Luke Shepherd. And whereas upon learning of the passing of Chief Shepherd, leadership of the City of Placerville Police Department immediately contacted the district to offer condolences and support for any of the needs of our district for our members. And whereas on March 25th, 2025, the City of Placerville Police Department was instrumental in the safe and respectful escort of Chief Shepherd from Sacramento International Airport to his residence in Shingle Springs. And whereas through coordination with the City of Placerville, Community Services, Public Works, and the City of Placerville Police Department, we were able to host a candlelight vigil honoring Chief Shepherd for the citizens of Placerville and El Dorado County, along with friends, family, and professional contacts on April 10th, 2025. And whereas the City of Placerville elected officials, city leadership, and staff across all levels have been truly supportive of the members of El Dorado County Fire Protection District through this difficult time. And now therefore, the El Dorado County Fire Protection District gratefully recognizes and supports the partnership with the City of Placerville approved on this day, May 15th, 2025 by the El Dorado County Fire District Board of Directors and Fire Chief. So truly, Dave, we appreciate all of you.
Thank you for all you do on this work. Absolutely. And I just want to Chair Kaiser, Madam Board, Chief, and everyone here. So City of Placerville appreciates all your efforts in keeping the city safe. You probably don't hear that enough. number one. Number two, thank you for the recognition. Number three, thank you for the opportunity to help celebrate Shep's life and his many contributions to the community. So, thank you.
And the administrative resolution 2025-05, recognition of El Dorado Hills Fire Department. Discuss review action, chief.
So the resolution, 2025-05 is in recognition of El Dorado Hills Fire Department, if approved by the board. Their board meeting is this evening, and my plan is to, present this to their board. And the resolution is, whereas on March 14th, 2025, the El Dorado County Fire Protection District learned of the untimely and tragic passing of Division Chief Shepard. Whereas members of the El Dorado Hills Fire Department peer support team immediately mobilized to provide support to all members of El Dorado County Fire and Diamond Springs Fire. And whereas the peer support provided to our members on multiple occasions was critical for the well-being of our personnel. And whereas the El Dorado Hills Fire Department members assisted in station coverage and escorted Chief Shepard home to his residence. And whereas the El Dorado Hills Fire Department Honor Guard led by Ray Phillips was instrumental in ensuring that Chief Shepard and his family were honored in a professional manner while adhering to fire department traditions. And whereas the members of the El Dorado Hills Fire Department represented your agency and community at the highest level of professionalism. And therefore, the El Dorado County Fire Protection District gratefully recognizes support and partnership with the El Dorado Hills Fire Department, approved on this day, May 15th, by the El Dorado County Fire District Board of Directors and the Fire Chief. That'll be up for consideration for approval. We're taking it to the Hills Board this evening.
Any public comment? Any public comment? Do I have a motion to approve item C?
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2025-5.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Director Heisman.
Aye.
Director Redmond.
Aye.
Director Rogan.
Aye.
Director Anderson.
Aye.
That's it. Item D, administrative resolution 2025-06, recognition of El Dorado County Professional Firefighters Logo 3556. Do I have a motion to approve this?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Who was the first on that? I'm sorry.
Lloyd,
And the second?
please, Jim.
Thank you. Director Heisman.
Aye.
Director Redmond.
Aye.
Director Wood.
Aye.
Director Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, we have several members of local 3556 here. And we'll say that. So resolution 2025-06 is recognition of the El Dorado County Professional Firefighters Local 3556. Whereas on March 14th, 2025, the El Dorado County Fire Protection District learned of the untimely and tragic passing of Division Chief Lucas Shepard. And whereas upon learning of the passing of Chief Shepard, Local 3556 leadership and members immediately recognized the impact to our district, our members, and the Shepard family. And whereas collaboration between Local 3556 members, the district and partner agencies took place to ensure the Shepard family and our members' needs were being addressed. And whereas Local 3556 members were instrumental in the planning and coordination of bringing Chief Shepard home, the candlelight vigil and memorial service. And whereas the El Dorado County Professional Firefighters Local 3556 Honor Guard demonstrate the highest level demonstrate the highest level, highest degree, I'm sorry. The dedication of to our members, our fire, sorry. Whereas the El Dorado County Professional Firefighters Local 3556 Honor Guard demonstrated the highest level of respect and professionalism in escorting Chief Shepard home and during his memorial service. And whereas the dedication to our members, our firefighters, and our district was demonstrated to the highest degree by all members of local 3556. Now therefore, the Illinois County Fire Protection District recognizes and appreciates the commitment to our fire district, our core values, and the communities we serve by all members of local 3556. Approved on this day, May 15, 2025, by the Illinois County Fire District Board of Directors and Fire Chief. And obviously, we have quite a few members of local 3556 that are here. A lot of the folks who are sitting here had really critical roles in making sure that we got everything done correctly. For Chief Shepherd, Chief Dutch was one of the family liaisons, spent countless hours with Tanya and her family and making sure everything that they needed was being met during that tragic time. The rest of our union leadership, integral players and just different coordination spots. Engineer Land was one of our honor guard members, was one of the members that went over to Hawaii. To bring Chief Shepherd home. But really, I couldn't be proud of our members. When I know that some of the board couldn't be at the memorial service, but a lot of you were there, and the level of professionalism that our members demonstrated, I mean, it was top notch. I think some of the players that had the integral workings behind the scenes might have had a couple of things that didn't go quite to script, but if you're on the outside, you had no way of knowing that everything went off without a hitch. So I couldn't be prouder of our folks and give this to our union president, Tom Kinski.
Yeah, so the union, we were proud to be a part of the final arrangements for Shepherd, and really honored to be included by his family in the proceedings. All of our members did a tremendous amount of work. Couldn't be prouder of the work that they did to honor Lucas, and appreciate the collaboration with the district.
Maybe we could have the PIO take a picture of you two. Oh, wait a minute, you're one of them. He's gonna do a selfie.
We get my part, we get our deputy,
Like this.
union.
Owns at 1% sweetheart.
Item E, administrative resolution 2025-07 fiscal year 2025/2026 preliminary budget. Discuss review action.
Good afternoon to the board, Captain Chief Cordero. Gentlemen, in front of you, I'm hopeful that you have both the district's 25-26 preliminary budget as well as the JPA's. Is that accurate? I'll just review it with you. I'll start with the asset revenue statement. And if you recall, the final budget 24-25 wasn't exactly the final budget. We adopted the mid-year final budget. So that's what reflects there in that first column there of the mid-year fiscal year there, because of the lowered ad valorem that we received a total of 2.6. And just for the record, that's trending as projected there on that. So I don't know as to whether or not we're going to continue to see that moving forward in the final numbers that we bring forth for 25-26. But right now, that's what we have so far on that trend. Therefore, the statutory profit to the property ad valorem is coming in at 2% above that for a total of 229,742. We haven't made any other adjustments there except for if you go probably 3/4 of your page down to the station 1627 lease budget. And I do apologize because I wasn't at that actual board meeting where the board had made a direct allocation for that for capital depreciation. We'll see that later in the class 6,000. So even though that comes in as a revenue, you guys have already previously earmarked that for a direct expenditure there. So it's essentially money in and money out. You'll see a reduction for $260,417 for 25-26 in comparison to 24-25, and that is for funds that were transferred for apparatus purchase. And then you'll see the exact same thing, and then below that in the JPA administrative fee, we see an increase of roughly $174,000. That reflects the new contract that we're hopeful to have finalized here as the final numbers come in there. And what happens there is that $6.5 million fee that we get right now, $1.3 million per medic unit, the administrative fees that we currently back out and impute into our revenue stream, those will no longer be included in the $6.5 million. So it'll be the $6.5 million, the admin fees will come in addition to that. So that increases the total admin fee from the JPA by about $174,000. The next line item, you'll see, once again, a pretty substantial reduction, but this is not a reduction in annual revenue. This is just a reduction in the one-time transfer payment for the apparatus, for a total reduction of $1.3 million, which brings the total revenue for 25-26 to $15,554,196. And that difference is a total of $1,066,608. But like I said, that reflects one-time purchase. Is not a revenue drop for our district. So we won't have any indication as to whether or not we're trending above the statutory assumption until we get those final numbers in. But right now it's just locked into the 2% growth there. Any questions about the revenue statement? If there are no questions, I'd like to go through the class 3,000 and 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, and then I'll come back to the financial summary. So if you could please come to page 1 of the class 3,000. As you guys are obviously aware, we're moving through the final stages of the annexation process with the Diamond Springs, El Dorado Fire Protection District, and there's been some quasi negotiations that have gone on and in efforts to bring both MOU contracts into alignment, as well as the needs to decrease the administrative chief officer model from a total of 9 between both agencies to a total of 7. So the 3,000 salaries reflect that reduction there. So you'll get 1 chief officer, division chief off of the books completely at the very beginning of the fiscal year. I'm the second chief officer. I don't come until the second quarter there. So that's already imputed into those costs. So you see credit, 100% credit for one and 67% credit for the other. You'll get obviously the 200% here in the next fiscal year. And then we have some increases that were imputed in the quasi negotiation. So that reflects a 2% educational increase for company officers and chief officers. And then as well as some sick leave accruals across the board. That will be, further down there in the sick leave accruals, but the chief officer contraction is imputed into this, as well as any other type of quasi negotiations, because that's likely to be triggered in the second quarter of this current fiscal year. So I didn't want to confuse anybody and make them think that there was a surplus when in fact it had already been essentially accounted for. So there will be some slight surplus because it's not effective at the very beginning of the first quarter, but it will be negligible in the grand scheme of things. In the overtime budget, you'll see a substantial jump in the sick leave accruals. But once again, that reflects the increase in 3 sick leave days across the board for all uniformed personnel, so they can come into alignment with the Diamond Springs Fire Protection District. There's little to no change there in the additional compensation as far as FLSA, uniform, and things like that. It's actually a slight reduction, but that reflects the step increases as we've had some senior employees transition off and junior employees come in. Once again, the ongoing theme here, and I'm sure the city of Placerville is very empathetic to this. The ongoing theme is obviously the amortization of the UAL. So that's an increase this year of 183,000. You guys can see a pretty large contraction there on the normal cost of the classics. That's for Chief McVeigh and myself coming off the books here, but is not fully realized because we have an increase on the Pepper side and also an increase on the UAL side as well. And that is that amortization is obviously anticipated to continue for not just the near future, but for a very long time until those liabilities are extinguished. So the total 25-26 for class 3,000, page 1 is $10,633,228 of a difference of an increase of $258,698. There's no questions there. I can go to page 2 of the class 3,000. Just some subtle differences with Social Security and Medicare. Not a whole lot on the health insurance. There has not been anything brought forward in the past or in the quasi negotiations regarding health insurance, and most of your employees on the district side are actually employee plus family, so there's not a whole lot of deviation that you get there fiscal year to fiscal year in comparison to the JPA that has some of the junior employees that are not married yet or don't have children yet. Not a whole lot of jumps anywhere, except if we go down to workers' comp, you can see that increase of $121,000 increase from the previous fiscal year. So the total 2025-26 preliminary budget is $12,850,940 for just the class 3,000. That's an increase above the 24-25 for $385,695. And like I said, that is inclusive of the quasi contract that is currently being worked out with Diamond Springs, as well as the UAL increases and the workers' comp increases as well. There are no questions about class 3,000. I can move on to class 4,000. So I don't bore you guys with anything that hasn't really changed there. There, so far, right now, and knock on wood, obviously a lot of our payments don't process out until after July 1st for the previous fiscal year. So far, we are trending exactly where we need to be, perhaps with a little bit of a surplus there in class 4,000. So I didn't make any adjustments unless they were absolutely necessary, because I wanted to obviously end with some type of surplus there for the board to be able to conceptualize what's happening within the preliminary budget without having to worry about any type of shortfalls. So the only increase that I have right now for the class 4,000, and just for the record, that could, certainly adjust as we move forward and get these final numbers in there. The only increase that I have is for insurance for a total of $50,000 for fire, theft, and property insurance. But I didn't make any other adjustments in the class 4,000. Okay, with the class 4,000, I can move on to the class 5,000, and that's just the station 28 payment that we have there. There's no changes there. $138,040 a year for the annual payment. We have a total of 11 fiscal years remaining on that, and there's money set aside for that drawdown. And then within the class 6,000, within the 60-20 column, you guys will see that initial 94,224 that I spoke of initially on the assets side. And once again, I apologize. I was not at that meeting, but it sounds like for the conversation I had with Chief Corderos that you guys had already agreed that would be money in, money out, specifically to the capital budget improvements that's being, where that revenue is being derived from. In the class 60-40 for equipment, there were no increases to that. There was a decrease, but once again, this is not a decrease in revenue. This is just a decrease in the expenditures that were predicated upon the one-time transfer there. For a total of $647,724 for the class 6,000, with a decrease by $1,209,776. If you gentlemen be kind enough to go back to the financial summary, I can give a review there.
Paul, I have a question.
Yes.
the apparatus replacement, I know we're using 400,000 a year, is that adequate going forward? Are we thinking that would be correct?
I don't think that that would be adequate going forward, but obviously there's tension within the budget because a large part of what we do is, you know, having employees work for the agency, that there's only so much money that we can earmark there, so just with inflation, and I don't see any slowdown in inflation anywhere, I think if it happens, it's going to be negligible. You got global labor inputs plugged into inflation. I just don't see anybody willingly taking pay cuts in this kind of environment. So I think that this inflation is going to be sticky for a while. As far as the increase in it, do I think that it should be increased? Yes, I think that it should be increased, but I just don't see how you can actually achieve that given the current constraints within the budget. There's no further questions there. You guys would like to go back to the financial summary? So the revenue is $15,554,196. Total expenditures, as mentioned, including the quasi negotiations and the decrease of the two DCs on our level, plus the UAL and workers' comp increases, brings our expenditures to $15,453,224 for a budget surplus of $100,972. And once again, this is just based off this 2% statutory growth. We don't know what's coming in on the final. If last year's 2.6% allocation was an anomaly, then it's icing on the cake. It's going to be win-win for us if we rebound back to a 4 or 5% growth. But I don't know what's going to happen there on that. We're still a couple months out from knowing what that's going to look like.
We're not Eldorado.
There is one subtle change there in the undesignated reserve account balance. There's no change to this total sum, just to the allocation, internal allocation of that total sum. We have been consistently for probably 3 or 4 years now been running overages on the sick leave accrual. So Director Brunton will recall that we essentially turned vacation into stipend, but we weren't able to do the same thing on the sick leave, even though we wanted to, because we had so many liabilities out there that we were not able to account for. We had senior employees on the books, so we couldn't cash them all out. So that is still on an annual accrual basis. So if an employee takes FMLA, all that's budgeted for is their annual accrual. So we exceed that. So I didn't feel that it was appropriate to punish the operational budget. I felt that the appropriate place to draw down from was from the actual reserves that had been set aside, because part of that reserve growth was in fact employees that were not using their sick leave. So it's not like you're taking from something. That's what's helped build it in the past. So that's the only change. But like I said, it's an internal change there, and we'll just watch it, or you guys will watch it moving forward as far as, you know, if it needs to be, money needs to be moved over and you can draw the nexus to FMLA utilization, then you would just move it over from there. I'm open for questions, or if you would like to go to the, I don't know if you guys want to adopt this and then go to the JPA, or adopt them both at the same time.
If you have any questions, we could adopt it.
I would do them separate.
I think we should do them separately. So, but this, we have a lot of assumptions in here that possibly can change if the JPA contract doesn't occur, which we think it will. That gives us that big benefit for the increase. We have some salary adjustments in here that don't occur unless there's the annexation.
Second quarter, they should be occurring, I would suspect. So what actually has been spent in the first quarter, it's gonna be negligible, especially because of the ongoing trend of the FMLA utilization. If we tell the county, hey, pull 100,000 out of there, as long as the county sees a surplus, they're not gonna touch it. So if you say, hey, there's actually, Doug said that this is spent, but there's actually 70K in here, the county will make us spend that first before they draw from the money shifted over to the sick leave.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve the 25-26 preliminary budget.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Director Kaiserman,
Aye.
Director Brennan.
Aye.
Director Rubin.
Aye.
Director Emerson.
Aye.
It's very tight budget. Hopefully, the statutory rate was rated into.
As mentioned, and there's no victim or villain in this, there would have been a larger surplus, but you've got, I accounted for that quasi negotiation because I didn't want it to be illusory to you guys. It was like, hey, there's a larger surplus than there is. I wanted it to be accounted for. I thought that was a prudent thing to do to say, but we've actually already spoken for this, even though you may not spend it immediately. I felt that it would be best as far as tracking purposes to account for.
For being conservative. All right, so on to the JPA.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, it sounds like your packet doesn't have the financial summary in front of it. Does it just go straight to class 3,000?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I apologize for that. So I can email you guys the financial summary. Once again, I'll just start with the class 3,000, then I'll go back to the financial summary. So there's really no difference. Well, obviously, if we get any type of attrition within the agency, typically the backfill was on the JPA side. So there's not a whole lot of movement in there regarding the cost of those salaries because of any type of attrition that has. So actually, rather than an increase, you have a decrease of 39,426, but that's just reflective of employees that were higher steps leaving and employers with newer steps coming in. And as far as like the total movement overall, I think that we had 2 openings, but they're accounted for right now. We have individuals going through the background and onboarding process there. So even when we have employees go off, I still capture them as first step because the vehicle in their absence is overtime. So we don't, so we can track them year round, even if we have any attrition in there. So it was actually a reduction there on the salaries. On the overtime, once again, that's those increases that have happened at the bargaining table that sound like they'll be finalized upon patch over, those were accounted as well for an $81,817 increase. $47,528 increase to the additional compensation, which includes FLSA, ambulance stipend, 457 contributions. Not a surprise, once again, on the retirement side, the JPA side, they pick up 1/3 of our total UAL costs because of all the legacy costs that have gone through the JPA. So we have an increase of $94,951 there on the UAL side for a total pension increase of $74,581 because we do get a slight decrease as senior employees go off because that PEPRA there's a nexus to the salaries on that. So it's 13% of their salary. So if a higher salaried employee goes off, we see a reduction there on the normal cost. So the 25-26 page 1, class 3,000 is $4,753,100, an increase of $164,500 from the previous fiscal year. And then on the class 2, we actually see a similar trend there. We see some decreases on, rather than increases, we see decreases on Medicare and decreases on healthcare. The healthcare decrease primarily reflects employees that we've had hit the Medi age, where once they hit 65 years old, they actually cost less to the district. We're only paying the PEMCA contributions at that point. So prior to that, they get $625 a month. Once they hit the Medi, they pay the PEMCA, which is essentially the pay to play. If you want to participate in CalPERS, the minimum that you have to pay, I think it's like $160 right now. So that's the delta that you see there. They go from $625 a month to that PEMCA cost in there. So that reduction reflects that. And once again, the increase to the workers' comp for 27,000, we still don't have those final numbers on there, so there may be adjustments on the final budget for the JPA workers' comp. And then the total from the fiscal year 25-26 on this page is $1,593,554 for a difference of $11,937. I'm gonna go back to the financial summary, and I apologize for you guys not having it in your board packet. The total revenue is $6.5 million. That reflects the 1.3 per medic unit. The total expenditures are $6,346,654. However, I accounted for our current admin fee being drawn out of that. So when the new contract hits, it will actually be that admin fee is aside from that 6.5 million. So you'll have a much larger surplus remaining within the JPA. Unfortunately, we don't get to keep it as an agency. It stays with the JPA side, but the total surplus, you know, drawing down the admin fee just to play it on the safe side in case something happens in negotiations. The total surplus is 153,346. If that new contract manifests, the total surplus will be like 600,000 and some change. But unfortunately, that will go into the collective pot, and who knows where that goes at that point. But there should be, knock on wood, it sounds like the intent is to keep the $1.3 million cap there, just to kind of discipline some people that lean towards overspending in the past, to keep that steady for the next 2 or 3 years. But that should not affect this district, because when you add the new contract in, that admin fee is outside of that 6.5 million. So you'll have roughly a 600K plus surplus to work with. And if there's any collective bargaining that happens there as far as increases or UAL increases, you guys should be fine until they sit down again and renegotiate that cap for the medic units.
How are they paying that admin fee? Is it paid quarterly or?
The proposed change structure to the admin fee, if you recall, it wasn't that many years ago, it was a flat $20,000 per unit, then went up to $51,250 per unit. The new proposal is the admin fee is 10% of your actual costs within class 30 up to a maximum of 1.1 million. So the cap would be $110,000 per unit for your class 30s absent of additional pay or additional compensation.
And how they pay it, quarterly, monthly, or they pay it, how,
They pay it annually. So
Oh, we get-
we bill for it annually.
you go for it at the end
I
of the,
believe they'll end doing it quarterly because it is on the actuals.
yeah, it should be quarterly, so we get that revenue and cash flow in. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's worse. 10% is really probably, I spoke with Chief Dutch quite a bit about this. That's really kind of where it should be, is at 10%.
Right now, we're gonna get 3% on the admin fee for it, which is ridiculous. Nobody's charging 3% for an admin fee. So I think 10% is very reasonable, considering that a lot of these admin contracts are 13% plus. You guys all know the OES reimbursement.
Yeah, it's usually 12-13%.
Yeah,
Oh, it's just bumped it up to 15.
Oh.
We sit around 18 to 21%, kind of bouncing that range.
Yeah, if you include the cost of the housing and the station and everything else, God, it's at least that.
that was the argument as we tried to get more for them.
And because we're not, but it's 10%, so it's over the 1.3 million, so it's separate from that base budget, but it's got a cap on it, right?
Well, it does, it's gonna be 10% of your actual class 3,000 costs, but like I said, the good thing is that as you guys are, you know, moving into the future and you say, hey, you know, we've got another 3 years before we can renegotiate this fixed rate contract, you've got plenty of buffer there. I think that right now I'm looking at anywhere from like 600,000 to 700,000 that you guys won't be using. Obviously, it's gonna be a collective grab bag for the JPA, but you guys can rightfully say, we haven't spent our full allocation yet. So anything that happens on our side, JPA side, increases or anything like that, that should be accounted for in that roughly $600,000 to $700,000 surplus.
I guess that's a summary on that one, right?
Yeah, I will email you guys the financial summary on that. I will actually email the remainder of the board, so I have, what you guys have here, I have in an Excel workbook tab, I'll just email you guys everything.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve this, budget, preliminary budget, unless something happens for 25.
I make the motion.
I'll second.
Dr. Logan. Director Kreisman.
Aye.
Director Brennan.
Aye.
Director Rogan.
Aye.
Director Evison.
Aye.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Item F, operation El Dorado County Fire EMS CQI updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The staff report before you and the CQI plan was actually developed by Chief Adams, who is here today, along with, firefighter paramedic Bill, or William Gates. Brad Gates. Sorry, I don't know what it is. And, PAO, Stephen Johnson. The staff report addresses the proposed updates of the following El Dorado County Fire Continuous CQI documents. There's an update to SOG 2.35, which is a CQI coordinator position, SOG 4.20, which is our continued quality improvement, and then the 2025 El Dorado County Fire CQI plan. And at this point, I will turn it over to Chief Adams, as he has been very intimately involved with this process, and let him kind of walk you through some of the updates and changes.
Thank you, Chief, thank you, happy board. As the chief stated, there's the two SOGs that I have on here that are gonna be updated. One of them, the SOG coordinating position, that's currently out and published. There's been some edits to that I wanted to go for, namely, the appointment process. There's nothing that's clearly defined in the current SOG on how those positions are appointed. And then the CQI SOG, we don't have a current one. So really what this does is it places it so that we have it in our policies and procedures to update it. And then the final thing is the CQI plan. So both the CQI policy and the CQI plan, those are required documents for Title 22. That's passed down from state level to the local level for LIMSA. So technically they should be enforcing it, which they haven't really been enforcing it. But in review of our current SOGs and policies and trying to dovetail that into what the county is looking for, we really turn it on to make this plan so that we have something that's in compliance with not only Title 22, but with LIMSA. What this does for us is it kind of outlines, not the providing, the transporting portion of it, that falls under the JPA side of it, but for the non-transporting, the CQI process for us as an agency, what we should be following. And again, that's Title 22, that's law, that's something that we should be abiding by anyways. What this does for us in the future is it really locks us into developing a track record of being in compliance. So like I said, the CQI plan is not something that we've had published before. It's something we're supposed to be turning in annually for review by LIMSA. And since we haven't been in compliance with that, I want to make sure that we are moving forward, that we have everything in line so that if we do want to go in other directions for potential revenue sources or expanding the programs that we have EMS wise, and then our involvement with the JPA as well. I want to make sure that we are in line with current policy and procedures, again, with the state and local. So, that's really all I have about that. They're pretty basic for the SOGs. And the plan is just something that's something that we need to have established. So I'm seeking approval for all three of those things. If you have any questions, I can answer questions for you.
Board comment. I think, I read it, I mean, it's expensive.
Yeah, I like the
Words.
edits.
Yeah, so in February, I had a previous TQI coordinator step down. And that's kind of, after reviewing our process, like where do we stand with actually, appointing another position? Because there is a stipend involved with it, but it's not clearly defined in MOU or in policy. So that's where the edit comes in of how we can appoint, to make sure that it's falling in line with, common, like standard practices. For lack of a better term, the removal of someone, like there's not really a procedure for that either. So I have to get with the union about discussing potential issues if someone needs to be released from that position. Since there is a stipend involved with it, there is a union component, because of the money. So that's really, in February, I brought on Brad Gates. He's been a great help to get that kind of resource going, especially from the state experiences that he has. And really helping with defining the CQI plan. And again, like I said, it's moving forward and really sets us up for showing consistency with the following policy.
Thank you.
What's our action on, do we have to approve this?
We seek an approval for, SOG 2.35, SOG 4.2, and the $1.5 county fire like that.
We get a motion, so it's,
Just in the package, yeah.
yeah, we have a motion regarding the EMS CQI updates, SOG 235, SOG 4.2, and the 2025 El Dorado County CQI.
We approve the CQI, EMS CQI as stated.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Kim? You need a vote.
Director Heisman.
Aye.
Director Brennan.
Aye.
Director Wright.
Aye.
Director Evanston.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on. Administrative first amendment to resolution and application LAFCO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the first and hopefully only addendum to our resolution application of LAFCO. The El Dorado County Fire Protection District, ECF, currently has 8 zones of benefit, ZOBs, within our district. It appears the ZOBs were established at the consolidation in 1991, likely due to some of the original individual fire districts having voter-approved assessments in place prior to consolidation. After consulting with LAFCO, the county auditor, State Board of Equalization, and our consultant, we have determined that the Diamond Springs El Dorado Fire District boundaries and sphere of influence, the SOI, will need to be either incorporated into an existing ECF ZOB or into a new ECF ZOB. The recommendation from the previously mentioned group was to incorporate the DSP boundaries into an existing ECF zone of benefit. The Shingle Springs zone of benefit does not have a voter-approved assessment and is immediately adjacent to the current Diamond Springs ZOB. I apologize for the typo there. The inclusion of the DSP boundaries into the Shingle Springs ZOB will not take place until the annexation is completed with LAFCO. Assigning the DSP boundaries to the Shingle Springs ZOB is for TRA tracking purposes and does not alter the board of director divisions or other operations within the district. Staff recommend the board approve the first addendum to the resolution and application dated December 10th, 2024. And attached to my staff report is that original resolution. And it outlines the TRAs that are currently in Diamond Springs. It would be, Diamond Springs has 2 zones of benefit. They're a standard district, and then they have an industrial zone. So both of those, where this is 0053 and 0054, will roll into the Shingle Springs zone. So my verbal report, happy to answer any question.
Is there any public comment? So there's no fiscal impact in doing this. It's just because they had no other revenue stream that's. If they did, we'd have to create another district.
Yeah, if there was, we could move them if, for example, Diamond Springs had a voter approved and it was the same as Pleasant Valley's voter approved, you could move them into there. But if it was different, then you would have to create a new zone benefit. But the fact that they do not have voter approved, nor does Shingle, that's where the recommendation was, don't create a new one, just attach them into that. And that will be part of our filing with State Board of Equalization once LAFCO completes the project.
It's pretty straightforward.
Another one of those learning things for me. I was unaware that we had those zones benefit.
You don't know until you go through an annexation.
But it appears, you know, because all those zones really line up to the previous fire districts and district boundaries for the private track. So
And it has nothing to do with later on when we want to create the board membership zones. There's nothing, it's just.
the only potential negative, if you will, that you could see is if for some reason this board or a future board post-annexation were to look to go after a voter-approved assessment solely for Diamond Springs or solely for Shingle, they're now merged into one. But
It's not gonna,
I think that likely.
those were all pre-existing ones that were there and they got incorporated into Eldorado County Fire, so. Yeah, it's like,
We
you're not
never
gonna get,
pursued.
you're not gonna get one of those unless it's a separate fire district there, so. Okay, so, other comments, so do we have a motion on this? To approve the first, addendum to resolution and application, Alaska.
I'll make that motion to approve the first amendment to the resolution and application.
Session?
I'll second.
Director Heisman,
Aye.
Director Redden,
Aye.
Director Hogan,
Aye.
Director Anderson,
Aye.
Okay, on to item H, administrative post-annexation ECF board structure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The districts continue to work closely with LAPCO and our consultants in completing the annexation process. Early in the preliminary discussions, the board of directors composition post-annexation has been discussed. The initial course of action has been is to include 2 members from the Diamond Springs board onto the ECF board, expanding our board to a 7-member board. And then through future election processes, ECF board will reduce back down to a 5-member board. We've recently been advised that the following processes or options would need to occur regarding the post-annexation board makeup. Option number 1 would be 2 of the current members from the Diamond Springs board would join the ECF board, establishing a 7-member board. Within 60 days of completing the annexation, ECF will need to file a new map with the county identifying those 7 board divisions. And then reducing the 7-member board to a 5-member board in the future would require a vote of the public and a creation of a new 5-division map. Option number 2, ECF board will remain in place as elected with 5 members. Within 60 days of completing the annexation, ECF would need to file a new map with the county, expanding the current boundaries of your divisions to include the Diamond Springs area. This option does not remove representation from the Diamond Springs board. Staff recommend the board provide direction to staff to proceed with option 1, which ensures representation from the Diamond Springs Board of Directors on the future board. The maps, I think the board's pretty familiar. A couple of years ago, we had to redraw our boundaries and balance out. And so that process of having to go in and create 2 new divisions, it'll take us a few hours with the county. Rough numbers, our board currently sits between 10 and 11,000 voter count within each division. Looking at Diamond, we'll probably end up right around the 10,000 per division. So when Diamond Springs board had some conversation on this on Tuesday at their board meeting, looking at, because we can look at where the board members live, because you don't want unintended consequences of all of a sudden somebody's out. Looking at our board and where our numbers are at, we're fine. Diamond has 2 board members that are interested in coming over, and I think they kind of informally stated it would be Rutherford, Director Rutherford, and Director Pettibone. One of them lives south of 49, the other one is on the north side of Highway 50, Green Valley, that area over there. So Chief Gallagher and I will need to, on either option, go in and redraw those boundaries to balance it out. With including the 2 from Diamond, you're gonna be right around that 10,000 mark for the boundary. So probably some encroachment into the Shingle Springs area, which we kind of had to expand that division on the last go around balance to get in some more votes. Some encroachment there, probably a little encroachment into like the Elk Hill area. That area of Pleasant Valley, kind of tweak the others to balance them out. That's what would need to take place, and again, to go back to a 5-member board in the future, that'd be something the board would put on the ballot to the public within our district to vote on.
So when you create those 2 areas, you're gonna have to take some away from Shingle Springs to make it work. Yeah.
It does not appear that Diamond Springs, Eldorado has enough population count. There's somewhere right around like 16,000, and just rough math, you're gonna need to be around 10,000 per division. So that's where a little bit of, and as you expand them out, like Director Brun's area that comes way down into, I might actually live in your division, double check, but like some of that could could shift
So
away.
you're gonna have to carve out some of the
Carve,
existing
yeah.
ones to make those three work or four work, whatever.
We can put in like hypothetical lines, and it's right there on the GIS, mapping where they're laying out this, well, take this census block and this one, move them in, well, that changes this, just kind of expanding that.
And we could keep it a 7-member board, there's no reason to bring it to, I mean, we could keep it 7. Or, and then, if we ever wanna bring it down, then you have to take a vote, of everybody in the whole area, and bring it down to 5. And then, so a quorum then is 4? But that's an uneven number,
This fire chief has no opposition to a 7-member board.
7 comments.
But I think either way, the 7-member board would be my recommendation, because that brings 2 members over from Diamond Springs, and I don't think it's, I mean, our whole intention all along has been to bring them over. We thought it might be a little bit of a process to go back to a 5, but I think bringing over representation from Diamond is very important.
Yeah, I'm okay with it, we'll see how it goes, the 7-member board. If everybody shows up, it's great, if they don't, then you think about it later on. So, I mean, any other discussion, everybody for option 1? Anybody want option
It
2?
sounds like that's been the plan all along, so maybe to change that, make sure.
Yeah, we don't wanna, we don't want, we told them they were gonna have 2 members coming across there, so.
On Tuesday, Diamond's board directed staff to move with option 1.
Yeah, so we're okay with that. So we have a motion to, go with option 1. For the annexation and the Diamond Springs, board.
I'll make a motion to go with option 1 of the post annexation for the directors. Second.
Director Gilbert, sorry, Director Ogan,
Aye.
Director Edmiston.
Aye.
We're all working into this.
I am.
Okay, that's a lot of resolutions.
It is.
It's getting used to those 30-minute long, that's the problem. We've exceeded the 30 minutes.
Precedent.
Okay, item I, deputy fire chief job description update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just an update on that. There was some discussion, obviously, at our last board meeting. I did, meet with our HR committee, and we kind of had a good discussion over the job description, the process, and everything involved. Our student feedback from Director Brunton. Our plan moving forward after meeting with the HR committee is myself and our HR committee will meet with Chief Gallagher and the HR committee from Diamond Springs Board, have some conversations about the concerns and things that were brought forward, have that discussion piece. Ideally put together a new or revised job description that meets the concerns and needs of everyone. From there, take that job description back to the working group, which is comprised of members of both agencies. Present there, vet it there, and then bring it back to the boards for consideration. We're at this HR committee, I think, most of
Okay, moving on to item 8, board matters. What are we going to? Item 9, committee report, standing committee, so, budget and finance. So we met on May 13th. It was, Chief Cordero, Chief Dutch, Director Gilchrist and I, Michael O was there, and Phil Lewandowski. Let's go over what we went over. We went over the 24-25 budget review, and Chief Dutch, well, we could review it at this board meeting, but we didn't do it. We reviewed it when we were there. The 25-26 preliminary budget, Chief Dutch reviewed the preliminary budget with us. We talked about succession planning for the financial officer. The committee discussed alternatives, and there will be further discussions on this topic, because Chief Dutch will be leaving in October, or the official date is November 10th, I think. Fire Prevention Bureau, Chief Cordero reviewed the status of the department concerning Lieutenant Jacob Pagansky and the temporary hiring of Chief Sterling. The AFG grant, Chief Cordero reviewed the status of the additional equipment added to the SCBA grant. And then legislative updates. SB 660, Directors Kaiserman and Gilchrist will attempt to contact the State Controller's Office to perform an independent study. SB 696, Fire Protection District Tax Exemption Director Gilchrist will be speaking at the State Revenue and Tax Committee meeting on Wednesday, 2025, and that passed the committee, if everybody knows that. That's really good news. So that's 4-0 on that. And it then goes to appropriations and where everything dies. But at least, I think Alvarado Gill is looking to, instead of make it statewide, restrict it down to smaller communities somehow, so maybe population, fire departments with population that they serve less than a couple of 100,000 or something like that, so it won't be as big a number for the state to absorb that. So we'll see where that goes, hopefully we got it through, but it's 4-0 vote. ERAF, Directors Kaiser and Gilchrist will continue to correspond with the Assembly Member Hedrick's office on reimbursement of ERAF deductions as a state budget item. Pilts, Directors Gilchrist and Kaiserman will continue to meet with our federal congressman to obtain information on Pilts calculations, why the funds are paid into the Eldorado County Fire Bank account and possible allocation of those funds to Eldorado County Fire. Diamond Springs Eldorado County Fire Annexation, Chief Wicker updated the committee on the zone of benefit designation for Diamond Springs and for Shingle Springs. And then there's the last piece of the Finance Committee messaging topics. Directors Gilchrist and the Communications Committee will prepare vignettes for approval by the Finance Committee. The object will be to create a set of revenue and expense video vignettes. Each vignette will focus on various top budget class identifications. That's the end of the report. So we're working on trying to get revenue in here soon. The sales tax was one of our first, and I think we may be able to get some of that Pilts money. And I have to talk to Jacob later. I'll tell him, I know why there's negative now on some of those calculations for ERAF. I'll share that with you later. More complicated calculations. Okay, communication. And
We have a meeting next Friday, correct? Make sure my calendar's right. No, you have it down right, so, okay, so next Friday, we have a communications meeting,
Okay,
but nothing else to report.
JPA, I was at the last JPA meeting. I got Directors Ogan and myself added to the distribution list so that we now get all the updates. We don't have to go through Chief Cordero again. You got one? I'm sure you're gonna report out on your JPA when we come to that. Ad hoc committees, facilities and equipment.
Nothing to add, we still got to plan our field trip down in Springs, I think. I'm sure back from vacation. Maybe a couple weeks ago. With our plan to go visit facilities and see the apparatus that Diamond has, just for our knowledge and see that their plans for their, any repairs to facilities, and then, their purchasing plan for apparatus.
You're gonna go to all their facilities that closed?
Yeah, we'll try to make rounds, there's only
Rework.
yeah, station, do not mount my head. It'd be an easy, quick, yeah. Couple, there's not a lot to see there. Pretty small.
Chief Williams provided the group with an update on the Station 28 stuff.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so, yes. And in case I miss anything, so, had some issues with Station 28, obviously, with the stucco. Long story short, contractors looking more into it and has discovered a lot more issues and problems. Looks like when it was constructed originally, they didn't quite do as good of a job as they probably should have, and as a result, deterioration of some of the structure itself. So we dug into it. We did have some few extra bucks to cover contingencies. So they're continuing to work on that. Right now, we're still doing okay regarding our contingency fund of money, but it's just, again, disappointing with that station that, you know, our newest station we have, and contractor just seemed like didn't do a very quality job on the construction element. So Hopefully whatever gets fixed with this will be the end of that, but I'm not gonna hold my breath, just, that's one thing, there's always something else.
In conversations with Chief Williams, and it looks like typically, I'm not a stucco guy, but typically stucco is about an inch thick. And most of what they found is maybe a half inch thick. Just really poor, and there's some things that Chief Williams is gonna work on in the interim to kind of secure the rest of the building. The part where the issue is the most exposed with the afternoon sun and that, but I would anticipate that over the next 3 or 5, 7 years, you're gonna restucco that entire building.
It's just,
Is there any contractor liability that even?
so, yes, so, legal,
Legal looked at it, and because I think it's typically 10 years, if I'm not mistaken, it's even beyond that. The contractor that's doing the work is actually a really good guy, and he's pretty irritated that, you know, this was a public building built with tax dollars, and like, they did such a horrible job on the, and horrible is not what not is. This is what we're going for, but you know, just a waste of tax, but you know, it should have been done.
He had some contract.
So he was going to, the contractor that's doing the repairs was gonna reach back out again to, some legal reviews just to see, hey, now that we've discovered that they really, you know, the stucco is basically about half of where it should have been. Is there any other recourse, even though the station was built in 2008, so.
Yeah, you wouldn't know that until it fails, that's the problem.
yeah. Well, the other thing that, Chief Williams brought up in his email is the fact that, you know, how is this not really, and that's, I think the contract wrote that during the inspection process, how is this not caught during then, and so there just seems like there was just a folly, a whole huge of follies that took place with this thing, and the fact that from reading that too, and seeing it in my mind again, is we're still paying on that damn building, you know? So, it's frustrating, but it does sound like the contract we have now is doing a good job with it, identifying these things so that when we do repairs, the repairs will be done right, but like the chief said, at some point, we're gonna have to reach into the piggy bank and do a full study job of that thing. And again, like I said, I hate to say it, but anytime you find one thing wrong in construction like that, you're gonna definitely find something else down the road, you know, is it the wiring, is this, is that, you know? Hopefully we don't find any more, but it was just that one contractor, the stucco contractor did a shoddy job.
Eldorado Hills, their crews out of 86 will be moving back into their station. Probably the next week or so, for the same project.
That was, that came to my mind as well when I was, yes.
There was subs that were being used. The stucco one definitely could have been better.
Clearly evident from the pictures.
I know you can usually put more stucco over stucco unless the backing is into, you can build it up. But
Well, that was one of the issues. And how it was that we put place and nailed it properly.
and there's a stucco nail and property. All right.
Yeah, that was the same, that project manager came right to mind as well when I was reading that. I was like,
Just saying.
Yeah, no, it came right to my mind.
There any updates on 19's mitigation?
19 has been a bit of frustration for Chief Williams. You know, he went through, got the quotes and all that, process, and just waiting on the insurance adjuster to approve it. I think he was 5, 6, maybe 7 weeks into trying to get a hold of the adjuster, and finally got a hold of somebody at the company, and went, oh, he doesn't work here anymore. So,
Not kidding.
that's why I couldn't get a reply from him. So it's been reassigned to a different adjuster, and hopefully that got reassigned, I think, like 2 weeks ago, so hopefully he's got the contract and everything all spoiled right there, so waiting for the insurance adjuster. We've been expressing, they approved it last week, okay, so it's been approved. And we've expressed the need with fire season coming up, to get that everything back to where they're normally running out this year. So hopefully we're shortly. I don't think the repairs are gonna take that long. So down
Item C was Diamond Springs and Eldorado County Fire Annexation Working Group. I intended to be a Zoom, but there was, hold on, we talked about this same thing, the map of east, and
Lacto piece, the board make up.
I think it was.
Fairly short.
It was a pretty short meeting. Okay. Correspondence and community and fire engine response.
And sure, we've been provided the stats for our companies, for the month of April. Call volume was down a little bit across the companies, for whatever reason, but you can see they're still very busy with their responses. I think all that information is provided in the packet. And I think it's good.
It's a picture, yeah, on the front side.
A good picture of
It's like the whole,
from front, yeah.
this is on water,
Dressed up, so.
got the whole,
hmm.
everybody out there. Okay, what about
And then we also, in correspondence, we received a thank you letter from Chief Diaz, the city of Fremont for our participation in firefighter D'Angelo service. And then we received, and it's been provided to the Shepherd family, on April 10th, the California State Senate adjourned in memory of Chief Shepherd. There was a Zoom link to it, and Senator Alvarado Gill did a really nice kind of reading out exactly kind of what all happened. Her staff had reached out prior to that, wanting some additional details and stuff, so she wrote kind of a nice thing, they jumped on his behalf, and then gave us a nice, kind of leather folder with, you know, formal sealed document, what's in your packet, so that's what we provided to the Shepherd family.
Fire chief's report?
For the city of Placerville, we assisted with the Placerville Fire Safety Council event on their annual wildfire safety day, which was April 26th. We had some pretty good attendance despite the weather. A good steady flow. We appreciate Cal Fire. They kind of came in at the last minute with the sand table, which was really probably the most popular item, if you will, for the community to see. But with some of the staffing changes in Elroy Hills, they weren't able to provide the sand table that they have the last few years, so Cal Fire stepped in and did that for us. On the JPA, the draft master contract, when I wrote this, was still county council. We did get the first look at the review. We had a meeting on Monday with county staff and our contract group. There's some questions and things that we're working on getting here on that piece. And then the individual transport agreements are still being worked on. The board's been briefing on issues that we have with that piece, so we'll continue to work on that. As far as the district, we have 3 employees that are coming online next Monday, the 19th. 2 firefighter EMTs, 1 firefighter paramedic. We had another firefighter paramedic in the pre-employment process, but that will probably not pan out. And then unfortunately, we did lose one of our firefighter paramedics to a Bay Area department a few weeks ago. Captain McGansky is transitioning to the Fire Prevention Bureau as of April 21st. And a big thank you to Chief Daniels for kind of overseeing this transition with him into the Bureau. Chief Sterling will be returning to the Bureau in the next couple of weeks. We've submitted everything to PERS. We're waiting for PERS to call back and say, yes, your stuff is good, so he's free to come back to work. We'll be attending the Strawberry Community Annual Fire Safety Meeting this Saturday. It'll be myself, Director Edmiston, and Pat Gabinetsky, and Inspector Sherwood from Diamond Springs. This is their 4th year doing this, usually really good turnout, so we're doing that on Saturday. On May 2nd, Diamond Springs Admin Assistant Lori Tuttle retired, and so her transition of duties is underway with Kathleen doing her 2nd board meeting this week. Thanks to smile. And the rest of the duties that are kind of being distributed amongst the admin team. And then our new admin support person, Hannah, she's integrating very well with the team. We have received our first installment of the AFG grant for the SCBA's. And Chief Daniels has submitted the amendment to the additional equipment for approximately $44,000. We just received notification that that was approved, so we should have that secondary check here in the next couple of weeks. The SCBA's did arrive just a few days ago. They're over in Mountain Springs. Got a very expensive corner in Fireman's Hall with all pallets of brand new boxes of all this equipment. So that'll be going into service over the next probably month or so as it gets inventoried and put into our computer system. There's some training for the crews and things like that. Engine 28 crews will be providing the second Take Your Kid to School and Fire Truck event on May 22nd. The family lives in Shingle Springs and students will be taken to school in Eldorado Hills. We just completed our annual RT-130 required wildland training. Engineer Land was here. He took the lead and got done. And our annual swiftwater drills are being completed this week. That's being coordinated by Captain Morgan, Captain Rose, and Captain Vermillion. The district is looking at moving away from radio and mobile for our dispatch and moving over to tablet command. Chief Daniels is taking the lead on this project. And radio mobile, there's all our units have iPads, and so the dispatch information comes through and they click responding as seen. CAL FIRE and a lot of the other agencies are moving away from radio mobile and moving to tablet command. Tablet command is a much more robust system. And the cost initially to go to tablet command is higher than what we're paying for radio mobile. However, it's all based on users. So as users on radio mobile becomes less, our cost to stay on radio mobile will go up. So just look at that, and it's not, I think it's gonna be an extra $5,000 to $10,000 a year on what we're already paying for radio mobile, but it's a much more robust system. Has a lot of features to it and things. It's a modern program. I mean, I think the radio mobile program that we're using was originally developed by the state, so it was garbage.
You don't have to say, I'll say it.
Great technology, probably just Windows 95 platform.
Tablet command is far superior.
Yeah.
Way better product. Much more intuitive, easy to use.
So we'll be looking at making that transition onto that. And then, it's got an email this morning from Red Hawk. We're looking to reschedule the, truck 28 demonstration. We're looking at either June 14th, 21st, or 28th. And, they actually want to, integrate it with a few other things with travel fire and a few other things and kind of make more of a kind of a community event out of it, if you will. So we'll see how that all plays out, but we'll definitely do our part with truck 20 down there to thank them and showcase it to the community. Any report?
Board comments, any board comments? Seeing none. Future agenda items. Next scheduled meeting is June 19th. Have a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye.
Sorry.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So we need a roll call, we adjourn.
Yeah. Aye.